Hey everybody, this is Chris, and today we are going to talk about the HUBSAN ZINO, ZINO Y, and ZINO Pro gimbal. This I think is a very useful video for any of you that are having the problems I'm going to talk about. And it's also a very useful tool because this is covering some very common questions that you find, say, in Facebook groups or in comments of my video. I get these a lot. And they're often the comment, how do I know if I have a Zino or a Zino Y? Which cable do I buy for the gimbal? And that's what I'm going to address here. I'm also going to show you not only am I going to show you the identifiers that you need to know to get the right cable and what that cable is used for. I'm going to do this as quickly as possible, but I wanted to also show you something that has just started popping up, and I don't know exactly what's going on here. It's got to be a crash, but in the past months I've now seen probably 3 where the camera is completely flipped over. You can't tell, but that's the back. Now the front of the camera is stuck. It's down here now. So the only thing I can think of is it's crashed and it's flipped itself all the way around like that due to like blunt force. But if that happens, do not power your quad back on. You can burn up the motors that way. You can even burn up your cables because they'll get real hot because that motor's trying to rehome itself. It doesn't know something's wrong. It's just going to continue trying. And they'll often go into a gimbal lock, but these here, they'll try for a long time before they'll go into any type of lock. So you can't, I don't recommend you try to force it back. I have a fix for it. So I'm going to share that one as well, but the main port, I'll do this towards the end of the video because I think a whole lot less people are going to ever experience this problem. But I want to go over the main thing, which is identifying what cable you have for Zino or Zino Y or Zino Pro and how to identify which one you have. So quickly here, let's go. The Zino image cable, Zino Y and Zino Pro, it's all the same. Very simple. Just buy an image cable and it fits all 3. And that's because the plug-in location on the back of the camera module, that's your camera module for a Zino Pro, it has not changed. So that plug-in is the same type, they share the same cable, although the module itself has changed between Zino and the Zino Y and Pro. The plug-in is still the same. Next question you're going to ask is, can you put a Zino camera module into a Zino Y or Zino Pro? I doubt it, but I don't know for sure because I haven't done it. You can take a Zino Y camera module and put it in a Zino Pro, and you can take a Zino Pro module and put it into a Zino Y because they are the exact same camera. So those parts are interchangeable. And as I said, the cable is the same for Zino, Zino Y, and Zino Pro. So you can just simply buy a new cable, not worry about anything. Now if you have the gimbal cable that you need, I don't know if you can see the part number here, Zino 00080. It's the same part number for Zino, Zino Y, and Zino Pro. We have 2 different cables. We have the same part number. So, a lot of people are intimidated to do these type of repairs themselves, and I think it's because of the initial confusion that Hubsan does when they do stupid things like this. Just give it another part number, make it something easy to obtain. But no, they go and give it the exact same part number, same packaging. There's nothing you can tell in purchasing it, and you have to trust that the person selling it to you, the company selling it to you, knows the difference and they give you the right one. Which in the very beginning, there was confusion because they didn't know themselves and they were just sending what they had. Now you'll go to a company like AliExpress and they know there are identifiers on these cables to tell you which one you have and which one you need. So before I get to showing you those, let's figure out what you have when it comes to Zino versus Zino Y. You obviously know you have a Zino Pro, so we'll exclude that. But if you have a Zino or Zino Y, the best way to find out is a little QR code on the side of your quad. You simply scan it, and then it'll tell you the serial number starting with Zino-Y and your serial number. If it's a Zino, it'll be Zino with your serial number. That tells you if you have a Zino or Zino Y. The only difference with those are the boards on your servos, and it's the plug-in area. So that, can't see it. I'll put pictures up on the screen of different things, but that little plug-in area is different, so it requires a different cable. That's the only thing different. There's nothing better or worse between the two models. They usually go and make a change like that. I am just guessing because cameras are made by third party. They go and switch parts probably based on availability, and probably they can get them cheaper from somebody else or whatever. But, you know, typical Hubsan, they do not tell you these things. We always just kind of stumble upon them ourselves the hard way, and that's why I try to make these videos to make it easier for you. So they've got two different cables, and when you go and purchase these, say on AliExpress, they do explain, if you pay attention, they do explain there are identifiers for Zino Y and Zino Pro, and I think they even call that now the Zino-YPR cable. And for the Zino, it's just a Zino cable. But if you can't scan the code on the side of your quad in your original box, you don't have it anymore, or you can't scan the code on that if they're just not legible, which often happens. People throw their boxes away and then that label on the side of the quad wears down and you can't scan it to find out if you have a Zino or a Zino Y. The only other way you're going to find out is looking at the cable on your gimbal. When it's in the quad, you can't see it. You can take the back cover off and look, but the only way you're going to find out is if you unplug that. I don't recommend you unplug that because these are very fragile, and just unplugging it can cause damage. And I'll show you what that damage can be in a minute. But the best way to identify it is simply take the top cover off and look at it on the board. This one here, if you take it apart, you can, it's your choice. It's your quad. I'm just telling you. I don't recommend you unplug that. I recommend you take the top cover off, unplug this one from the board, and then look at it, and you'll see the identifier. What the identifier is for the Zino, when you are replacing that cable, let me make sure I have the right one. Doesn't matter because you can't see it, but this is for the Zino, and I'll put it up on the board and show you the identifiers. Every plug has an identifier where it says yaw, pitch, roll, and next to that, on the side where the terminals are, not the back side where the shiny part is, the side that has the terminals, it's going to have a little dot, a white dot. So on each one of those, you're going to see a white dot. If you see that white dot, then that means you have a Zino. So that is the cable you want to buy when you're shopping for it, say on AliExpress. That's who I recommend, just because they've done a good job at showing those identifiers. And I haven't had a problem ordering these. I get about $80 worth of cables a month for all the Zinos I work on. But Zino, you're going to have the dots or periods next to your yaw, pitch, roll, where it actually reads yaw, pitch, roll. And then for Zino Pro, you're not going to have those. You will not see one of those white dots anywhere. You won't have that on your cable. But what you will have is on the end that connects to the board, it'll say J1. And then the end where it goes, I think, to pitch, yeah. The other end where it plugs into pitch, you'll have a J4. So J4 where it says pitch, J1 where it says board, or motor, I'm sorry. So the part that connects to the board where it says motor, you'll see a J1, and then on the pitch you'll see a J4. That's how you identify this for the Zino Y and the Zino Pro. That's the cable you're going to look for, purchase, and use. So now let's go over some of the little things that happen to these cables. One thing that happens to the cables is what I call delaminate. If you can see that. See how it comes and separates. See if I can get it. There we go. Do it again. So it comes apart. And then they heat up and then they fail. A lot of times you'll get them this way and they work perfectly fine, but through time they'll eventually fail. A majority of these that I get, they separate and delaminate like that. This is a brand new one and it's separated and delaminated like that. It will work when I use it, but it might not last as long. I don't know. There's no way around it. Almost all of them come that way. So that's one thing it causes them to fail. But another thing to look for is if your gimbal is totally dead, this motor doesn't work, this motor doesn't work, and this motor doesn't work, chances are replace that whole cable, gimbal cable, and it will work perfectly fine. If this motor is working, but this motor's not, and this is just limp, then chances are it's just the connector in the back. And I have a video showing where that's happened, and you reset that connector and or reseat the connector, then you make that connection again and it starts working. If you're lucky, that's the problem. If you're unlucky, another thing that happens is you'll look at that plug and think, oh, it's perfectly fine. It's plugged in, you press on it, it feels like it's plugged in. But it's not. What happens, I've got one that I've cut, and I'll have to put a picture up of this for sure because it's so tiny. What happens is your connector comes detached from the cable. I say connector, pins, whatever you want to call it, but here it is. It comes off the cable, and it's so tiny. It detaches itself from the cable very easily, and it stays attached to the board on the ESC. So you go to plug in your new cable if you go to replace it, and it won't click, it won't snap, and that's because that little piece is still in there. So you have to take like a pair of tweezers or a very tiny screwdriver and carefully pop it off. And I mean carefully, because you can damage this portion very easily as well. Those pins are extremely fragile. They're tiny, and if you hit one, you can easily break it or bend it. So you got to be extremely careful with those. But that's one of the things that can happen, is this just comes delaminated, I use that term, from the cable, and you have no connection if that happens. So one of the reasons for that is because Hubsan calls this a reset button, and you have a problem where that stops working and you press it, and after you've done that a few times, maybe you pressed a little too hard, or you used a screwdriver and you're pressing on it and it slips. That can cause that to happen. Or when you went to go check it, there was so much glue on there and you went to go unplug it and you pulled too hard, and maybe that caused it. I don't know. But that's one of the ways that happens, is just simply messing with it too much. The other reason is through just time and vibration and things like that, I think, because on the back of this plate goes on the back of your gimbal, like that. On the back of that plate, there should be a piece of foam. If you look at this one, let's get you over here. See those two holes at the very top? There's no foam there. If you can see those holes, that means there's no foam there. It should look like this. That piece of foam. What that foam does is it presses up against the plug. It keeps it connected, it stops it from vibrating around, it stops you from having to reseat the connection every time. So that's why that part fails on the plug. That's usually what happens. So it might look perfectly fine because it's in place, the glue is all still there, you don't see a bad connection, but the only way you're going to find out is if you unplug it from the back, if that be the case. Sometimes it's the top or the side. But the only way you're going to find that out is if you unplug it and actually look at it. When you plug these in, you should actually feel and hear a click. And I'll shut my mouth and put this up next to the microphone so you can hear. You should hear that. I think I got a good enough microphone to where you heard that. If you don't feel or hear that, then you either have the wrong cable and it's not plugging in, or this end is still connected to the board and you're not able to plug in. So you've removed your old cable, you didn't notice that piece is still on there, it's missing from your cable. You go to put a new cable on and it doesn't work, and that might be the case. So those are just things to look out for that I pick up along the way. I work on a ton of these, so I see it all. That's pretty much all of that. Nothing else really to show you as far as that goes. Same cable for image cable for all three versions of the Zino. Different for Zino, different gimbal cables for Zino versus the Zino Y and Pro. They share their own. So now you know those identifiers and which one you need to purchase when that time comes. And when people see this posted in groups, you can just simply share this video and help people out. I don't suggest you go taking apart your Zino, taking the back plate off to see if you have this foam. But if you are good at that and you're comfortable with doing that, simply just pull it off and check and see if you have that foam. If you don't, do I have one near me? Yep. I have a little piece of foam right here that I just cut little slices off of. I mean, I'm talking tiny. It doesn't require a thick piece, just a very thin piece of foam glued on the back there on that plate, and that will hold that connector in place. If you go too thick and you have to push that back cover on hard, then it's putting too much pressure on that plug, and that plug's most likely going to fail. So that's how fragile these cables are. Those plugs are what's so fragile on them, and that's generally where the problem lies. So last part in this video is the thing that I've been seeing lately, and I don't understand what is going on, but Zino's been around long enough to where if this was a problem, you would see it a lot. Just recently I started seeing this, and the only thing I can think of is they've crashed. I don't see any other way for this to happen. It can't do it to itself. But that's the back of the camera. Your lens is now stuck up against the gimbal frame. Won't come out. Try all you want. If you force the issue, you're probably going to cause damage. Even though it got itself there, it doesn't mean that it's going to successfully come undone without doing damage. So this one doesn't have any cables. It's the easiest one for me to show you though. What you need to do I have that piece? Where is it? Let me look in my box here. My box of goodies. If you go to the side of your gimbal, this side right here, where the round part is, you remove that. You can, and I've got a video that shows you how to replace the gimbal cable, or the image cable. So if you look at that video, you'll see how to take this apart. But I'm just going to tell you, you remove that. It's just a little piece of adhesive. It sticks on. Peel that off. And after you do that, you're going to remove 2 screws. I just dropped it. Hold on. Okay, found it. This is my third take on this video. I'm just editing this part out. Every time I've tried to make this video, I didn't turn my phone off and it's ringing, or my son was cutting the grass and a lawnmower was going, stuff like that. But anyhow, once you've taken that piece off, you see you got two screw holes there. This one and then one right next to it. You see, when you peel that off, you'll see those two screws. You remove those screws. It's just two screws. And then you carefully lift off this side plate. Like that. And you'll see there's a bearing in the middle. Sometimes the bearing will stay right here. You want to remove that bearing, just so you don't drop it. The point is, once you remove that side cover, now you have some flex. See that moving? That's going to give you enough flex to where you can put the camera back where it belongs. So if your camera is stuck up in there, you want to pull away and turn down. Do not pull away and try to turn it up. So you want to simply, I'll see if I can do this in front of you here. Pull it away and flip it up. And now our camera is back and we're okay. So it's got places where it automatically stops. It should not go all the way like that, but apparently they are. So like I said, I've seen like 3 of these in the past months. But you want to just be very careful. This one does not have a cable in there. If you look at my video where I replace that image cable, you'll see why I say be very careful, because that cable coils around in there. Almost like a spring on a pull lawnmower or weed whacker, how that spring coils. That's exactly what this cable does inside. And you'll see that in my video where I replace that cable. But if you take this cover off carefully, that cable will not just pop out on you. As long as you leave that cable alone and don't hit it and disturb it, you'll be okay. So after you fix your camera, just put this side piece back on, put your 2 screws back in place, and then re-stick your side plate, which is just adhesive, and that will fix that. That's one I never thought I would do a tutorial on, because I've never seen it. I didn't know it existed. So now it's something that I'm starting to see, so figured I'll go ahead and add it to this video right here, and hopefully help somebody out. And as a matter of fact, the third one I saw was today, so if he didn't see my comment, I'm going to go back and post this video once I publish it and hopefully help him out. So that's it. Real quick recap, just to end the video. Image cables are the same. Zino has its own cable. It's got little dots on it. Zino Y and Zino Pro, they say J1 and J4 on each end. Why? Because they've gone and changed the boards on the servos. Ways to find out what's going on is simply go and check your cables on the gimbal and look at them and see if you can find things where, like this, where it's just come apart. Double check your back plate and make sure you have the foam on it. If not, add a small sliver piece of it. And that's it. And then if your camera flips over backwards while you're sleeping at night, because I haven't seen anybody say they crashed yet, and I don't ask, but if it just mysteriously flips over backwards, which it's not going to do by itself, then you know how to fix that safely without having to take the whole quad apart. Just take that side plate off and you get that freedom to move it and put it back safely. So that's it. Hope this video helped everybody. You know what to do. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. And as always, hit the bell for future content and notifications. And I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.